Well, here we are back again, Tuesday here. Welcome, John, back to the Markcast here with John Lewis Sports. We could continue our off-air conversation about storage solutions and LTO tape backups, or would you like to talk alternative football here, John?
Well, I mean, it's up to you. You are the host, but I would say the people tuned in right now would probably love to hear about analog tape, but probably more about spring football.
This is good. So we're here today talking the UFL, previewing the championship game, playoffs on here. Yeah, John, like laptop went into the corner of the desk or wall or something.
Yes.
John's got this big boom pull up here. We're here today. The sun is shining. The Stallions are not in the championship game. Neither the Bell. I mean, this is really like the Markcast Bowl here. I've got I won an auction for a new domain. I was very excited for that. I DM'd a couple people. I always keep my eye on. I'm always sneaking behind the scenes here, John, picking up good domains and all that. How are you? How was your weekend? And how was football? Because I just caught up on everything. This was exciting.
It was good. You know, I think the conference games may have been a little bit of a letdown for, certainly for the Stallions and Battlehawks fans. But they were, by the time you got to the fourth quarter, it was both of them felt like it was just kind of out of control. But, to me, I think this is going to be a really good UFL championship. I love the matchup. We've seen it once already. It'll be interesting to see it on a neutral field, but I will say that I think this might be the UFL's worst nightmare. We were talking about it before. It's like, if you don't have Birmingham, which you can kind of sell that storyline of they're going for 4 straight, and it hasn't really happened in outdoor football, I think, since the Grey Cup and in the 70s or 80s maybe. And then, you would have St. Louis at home. But if you don't have either one of those stories, then, what happens? Again, that's for us, the people watching here. I think for the casual fans who might tune into the game on Saturday night, it won't really matter. I just hope it's a really good game because these are two of the best quarterbacks that we have seen in a long time.
Yeah, no, I think gameplay wise, this is going to be great. League wise, this is not great. I don't want to call it a disaster, but I mean, it's certainly not ideal. So set the stage today. We'll be doing that. John and I previewing the championship game. We'll talk through the playoffs, and then we'll see. We'll do a championship recap next week, and then we'll see. John, that might be it for me. We'll kind of see. I put online. We're taking the CFL season off, work schedule and all of that, but we'll see. We're going to ride out the UFL season. I know John's continuing his channel. Please like and subscribe over there, John Lewis Sports. I don't know if it's goodbye, but it's certainly goodbye for right now. And so we'll do this week. We'll do next week. So thumbs up. And people have dropped off. And if you were a CFL person only, and certainly get all of that, but I really appreciate everyone sticking around. But we'll see how we do. But we're at least going through the whole season here, John. I watched everything. I was gone. I mean, that's like the thing is I'm spending, and it's fine. I'm happy. But it's all day today to catch up, because we're gone all weekend in these games. And it just gets into a really horrible time of year for me for that. How concerned do you think Daryl Johnston and the rest of UFL ownership feels right now about St. Louis hosting the championship game again without St. Louis in it?
I think there's probably some trepidation. I mean, and there should be. I mean, you were at last year's championship game when St. Louis wasn't in it, and Lower Bowl certainly wasn't full. And hey, thank you, King Williams 3D. I appreciate that. But I do hope that there is a good crowd. Jordan Tamu, he was trying to kind of get people to come out because he said, there were people at that St. Louis game who were they were Battlehawks fans who were wearing Jordan Tamu's Battlehawks jersey from 2020. So he said, man, that was great. It's nice to see. And I hope that a lot of those fans who were fans of what, we tried to do here in 2020 before the season got canceled, I hope they show up next week and show up for this. And also Mike Nolan said, hey, man, we had 16,000 strong at Ford Field. It would be great if, those fans could make that short trip to St. Louis. So we'll see. It would be, I mean, how great that would be to see some fan bases come together with, the DC fans who have traveled to other games who might be there. But, St. Louis in general, they've got to be so disappointed because it just feels like St. Louis has been so close every time and it just never comes to fruition. But you would hope that a lot of people, in the city there would come out and but to answer your question, yeah, I think there's probably a lot of trepidation. They want this to look good on television because this is a television product.
We'll do so. We'll do a full breakdown of both games, and we'll talk through. I have Abdul here already talking about locking off seats for the championship game. We'll talk all about and ratings and everything else. I guess where do we want to start today? I want to make sure I pull up Abdul's tweet I shared yesterday as well. Do you want to talk through the TV ratings that just came out, and then we can kind of go backwards from that? I think I have Mike Mitchell's up here.
Yeah. Let's we'll talk about that because there was, there were some interesting numbers there for the weekend.
All right, so let's do that first. Actually, now I do have it pulled up. So let's do this, and this will go into all of that stuff. Can I share this here and do all that? So this was the first piece of news I shared yesterday before we got Mike Mitchell's TV ratings today that he posted for both the XFL. The XFL Conference Championship game and the USFL Conference Championship game. One thing that was interesting to me that Abdul shared from the Friday night, we had our first Friday night without the UFL, going back to whatever that would have been, March 30th. And you see here we had Gordon Ramsay, a 2-hour block, and then you had Master Chef, just like the 2-hour Gordon Ramsay, but the Master Chef and the Gordon Ramsay, averaging 762,000 viewers on there, and then 690, both basically around or a little bit higher than what the UFL was drawing. And that I had tweeted out, it makes you wonder what costs Fox more residuals to Gordon Ramsay or paying for the UFL. But this was interesting because this is like, they just have this in the can, right? These are just like, we just throw these on. And when the UFL exists as a really a TV only product, I mean, we'll talk attendance here in a minute. And then you see, well, shoot, we can just put what was your reaction to this? Because I thought this is not a good sign in my opinion.
This is something that we talked about before when we started to see those low numbers, how we said, they've already got this. As you see the RP there by where it says Master Chef Friday RP, that means repeat. That means that these are things that have already aired. And that was one of the things that I was really concerned about, was that when we started to see those low ratings, I said, you could show a rerun of Masked Singer or something and maybe get more viewers. I felt like Fox fumbled it a little bit this year. I thought they could make Friday night a thing and, like really kind of do it up and make it special. But it felt like, I just really thought that ABC and ESPN did such a good job in presentation, and it was so much better, and they added a little more to it. Sure, they had, the betting segments, which I think a lot of people might get tired of, but it did make it different than, an NFL broadcast or any kind of other football broadcast. So that was a little disappointing out of Fox, because we talked about it before the season. I even did a video about before the season started, like here are like 3 things that Fox can do to like really dress this up and make this something interesting to the casual viewer. And I really didn't see that. And that was, and I think it started to kind of bear out in what we saw here in these numbers.
Yeah, I just have to think it's discouraging. I mean, it is. And obviously, and funny enough, I actually interviewed Gordon Ramsay back in, I was still in news. So this would have been 2014, 15, I don't know. Right. And they did one of those where I never watched Gordon Ramsay, but they did the Kitchen Nightmare or whatever, the one where they tear the restaurant, he goes in, the John Taffer, and kind of yells at everyone. And he's a weird dude, because I had, how it goes in news, like, go, and I had to sit there like 2 hours waiting for him to like, okay, well, now we're gonna break, and then you can interview him. And he is just a really weird, like, it was almost like he couldn't even talk to the camera, like you were, and he just, oh yeah, I just think it's just really interesting. But here, like, it's like Gordon Ramsay, because I guess the last thing on this is we hypothesized a lot about this all season. What would that look like? And here we look, and now we know the answer. And if the hundreds and hundreds of people that put together a football league over the last 3 years, and then you find out that it's just hard. So it just puts everything in perspective, I guess, more than anything else.
Well, and this is something that I've said here before. It was encouraging to read an article where Daryl Johnston said, this is just year 2. Like so there he opened the window there for, we are starting to learn things. I know you don't trust Daryl Johnston maybe in what he says, or but to me, I thought that was encouraging. He didn't try to gaslight with ratings aren't down, or he didn't try to gaslight and say everything's going great. He understands and said it publicly, because we can all see it. That's the thing. It's like, we can see it in black and white. Like, there are things that they need to work on. The gameplay has been it's been outstanding, especially after about week 3. We've seen some really good games, even from teams that were out of it. We saw good games from Houston. We saw good games from San Antonio. We saw good games from Memphis. We saw a good games from a lot of teams that were out of it. We saw Luis Perez again. So there were a lot of positives, but there are some things they can work on as they move to now year 3 of the UFL.
Well, I like hearing that it's only year 2. Gives me stock in my domain here. That's good. My stock is going
Are
up.
you going to reveal the domain?
I know. I like
it
only being year 2, but we're going to move to the conference TV ratings here because, like you said, great games, and even the St. Louis game that kind of got out of hand. I thought had a lot of intrigue of God, is St. Louis going to blow this again? And you had a Brandon Silvers appearance, and then Duggan we had talked all season about Duggan's throwing motion, and he's dropping the ball all over. He kept getting knocked. I mean, I thought that was interesting, and you had the whole storyline with DC and all of that. Obviously, the Birmingham game was closer on paper. I thought tremendous games across the board. We've always said this. The games is not the problem. It's everything else with that. Let's go. So the XFL Conference game, because this was on Fox, right? And we will do that, and then we'll do the ABC, which is better on here. DC Defenders, St. Louis. So this was the later game. We're going back 6 p.m. Eastern, 873,000 viewers, peaked at 1.46. So that was kind of the mid game, right? This was going up, I believe, against the NBA Finals as well. I think was Mike was saying on the this time period in the Saturday night as well. Fox, along with the Friday nights, have been trending below ABC and ESPN on that. Thoughts on that? Did I say anything out of incorrect there when I did my analyst?
No, and I really haven't been paying attention to what the NBA ratings are, but I said
8.7. I think it was the lowest. I just saw the article, and I'm like, because I get the front office sports newsletter. I just got like at 2. They must send it out like I'm like, I get it like every day. They must. It's a newsletter, John. I just learned how a newsletter works. But they were it's down like 20. The worst since COVID, and 20. It's like 8.67 million because it's Indianapolis and Oklahoma. Former Sonics.
Right. It's Indiana and Oklahoma City, which that was another thing that I talked to with some friends. Is like, now you want to talk about the worst nightmare for the NBA?
Oh God! Yeah.
Listen. It's like you've got those 2 markets, playing. It's like that. Like who else is going to be interested? Now, I can tell you here in Louisville, there are a lot of Pacers fans. So I would think that the ratings are probably really good here, even though that Louisville just so happened was one of the higher rated markets for the UFL. So I don't know how that shaped out. I don't have access to Nielsen anymore. I'm sure Mike could break it down for us. But yeah. But no, I think when you look at it, people are still going to watch the NBA, especially when it's the finals. Maybe not as much when it's not LA or Boston or whatever. But I thought that was pretty good, and certainly comparatively speaking to what we have seen before, I was really hoping, hope of hopes, it might top 1 million on because it was a conference championship game that they might have promoted a little bit more.
It was funny when WWE came here years ago, and the Miz, I think it was Elias. One of the heel wrestlers came out. Maybe it was Elias, and made a joke about the Sonics and the leaving and the Oklahoma, and we booed. I mean, it went, and I might have been a little intoxicated, but they went to commercial, came back, and we were still. I mean, it was like 6 or 7 minutes at Climate Pledge, the whole way around, right. And I was like, "Oh, this is really good." So we can't have the Thunder win just by proxy of the Sonics have to be on that. But no, was it? It was the early game, right? Where Joe where he was yelling about having the stuff on there. Was that the early game? Was that the ESPN one? I was sending you that stuff off the air.
That was it was. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But no, so I don't know. You would like to see Fox top that 873. You're going like we said, you're going them against the NBA. But then obviously you want the conference title with that. Any other takeaways from that? I don't know what Fox does to kind of I would love to know Mike Mulvihill's thoughts right now. This is candid thoughts. Are we like we just said, I mean, okay, you do the Friday night thing with Gordon, but here we have the XFL Championship game on, this is primetime Fox, whatever, again, opposite, and we're dealing. Right. I just curious your thoughts on just Fox's appetite. We saw NBC drop out of the USFL, that kind of all that agreement. That was part of the merger and everything, but you saw them maybe not feeling like they were getting enough out of that.
Could be. And it was delayed, I think, about 25 minutes or so. Fox had and I don't watch soccer, so I'm not sure what it was, but it was some kind of and there was some trophy presentation thing, and it ran over, which actually worked into their favor because the USFL Conference Championship had not quite wrapped up at 6:00. I also when I saw it was going to be 3 and 6. Now I know they've been playing a lot of these games right at the 3-hour mark, but I mean you're kind of taking a chance when you got
100%.
two conference championship games on different networks, but it did end up working out. I think the soccer ran a little long, and they might have even carried it a little longer than they had planned to because they did a lot of trophy presentations and stuff. But yeah, you got to wonder, here it is, 6 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday. You would have thought that it really had a shot to top, 1 million viewers, but this is kind of the trend that we've seen. At least it was higher than some of these Friday night games. That's the positive out of this.
Did you know? So like Major League Soccer can't actually use MLS.com because that's MLS. That's the real estate website. So they actually have to use MLSsoccer.com. That's pretty interesting. The like Major League Soccer doesn't actually have MLS.com.
Now, why would you bring that up?
But I did like how, was it St. Louis tweeted, they're like, oh, the defenders need more time to get ready for the game because with a delay, and then they lost. I'm like, man, this is, I like that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, and I don't know any better time to talk about this, but we have been talking offline that both the Twitter and Instagram and everything doesn't seem to know when this championship game is. That Fox on UFL, what is it? The UFL on Fox
UFL
Twitter
on
account
Fox, yeah,
seems to think that the game is on Fox this weekend, which it is not. It's on ABC. And they also think that it's on Sunday, June 14th, which it's on Saturday, June 14th. But even yesterday, I think it was one of the, and I got an email yesterday from the UFL saying that the game was on Sunday and not Saturday. And then they updated it. I responded, just so you know, never heard a response. It was actually one of the team reps and not the league. So, but still, like, no, I'm like, this is where I get my problem, John, of like, I can only care so much. Like when we don't, like when UFL on, like, I'm sure they just like had the graphic from last year and update. Like when the networks don't know when the game is or don't care to update or delete the tweet, like I can only care so much. Is just kind of where I'm at and how I feel the way I am.
And I can show you it is still up. It's been 2 days and it still says it's Sunday. And you can see there, I actually replied, hang on, isn't this Saturday on ABC, not on Fox on Sunday? So there's a lack of detail. And here's the problem with this. There's only about 2 or 3 of us that were in the comments there on Instagram who said, this isn't right. Yeah, everyone else is like, oh, this is great and whatever. It's like, there's going to be a lot of people that are casuals who saw that, and then they're going to say they're going to tune in on Sunday, and it's going to be too late.
I know. Do I have the Twitter one even? I mean, I had sent it to him, but it's just like, and then there's no response. And so then you're like, okay, well, why do that's when then I just start losing like my will. And like, at the end of next week, this won't be like because the Sea Dragons didn't come back to Seattle or because of like online bullying or because of, it'll be like, because I just can't care. If you can't get the date of the championship game right in the email and like don't respond or like, that's where I just am like, what am I doing here?
Well,
I'm going crazy.
I just don't get like, there are coaches and general managers and everything who will tell you football is about detail and everything is about detail. And for that to be up for 2+ days kind of shows you, and from the UFL on Fox account, to me, that's a problem. And it's been liked by Fox Sports. You'd think anybody would say, hey, that graphic's not right. Or
so they deleted the one on Twitter. I just pulled it up because I texted. So that's, I mean, okay, it's Tuesday at 3:20 now. I mean, this okay. So like, it's
maybe just, Instagram's next.
I just can't I can't care more than like they care. It's just kind of where I'm at. Like, I just can't. It's just really hard. So, so we did that. Okay. So then the ABC ratings here. So this was better, and we were hoping all this stuff on here. Yeah. So the USFL Conference rating, the better game, to be fair, the ABC game. So noon Eastern on this, and this was like, this is also why this time of year is just brutal. Like, these are all, it's like graduation parties and barbecues and all like spring. It's a horrible time of year to try to watch anything on the weekends. Like I said, I caught up all day today, which was great, but I couldn't imagine most casual, it's hard to kind of just sit down and find the time to do these this time of year. But what was it, 1.1 million, peaked at 1.6 with the so yeah, noon to 3. Better, ABC was a lot
better presentation too. Joe Test sells everything like it's a Super Bowl, and that is not a criticism. I mean, I love that he gets intense about these games, and I don't know if it was on Twitter, but the video that you sent me, someone had been recording. It obviously was not on the air. They were recording the back haul, recording what was not for air, and he was like pretty, trying to. You don't like people who want to try to direct and produce from the booth, as someone who is a sportscaster and has worked behind the scenes. But he was saying, hey, can we put this up there so it says conference championship, and can we do this? So because we want people to know what they're watching. And you would hope that everyone that involved in the UFL cares as much as Joe Test did about the broadcast.
Well, no, and that is just also, and I don't want to speak to the ABC crew or whatever that, but I understand the not producing like from the booth thing. But I have the same thing. Saturday, I had to go out and shoot a dance recital at the thing, and I told them I'd be there at 1. The thing was at 2, and I show up at 1, and like none of the audio stuff was ready, and nothing was, for me to test or do. Right. And so then they're like, oh, well, we got to go on break now. We got to go. I'm like, guys, you've known, like, I would have been here at noon or 11 or what, like you said anyway. And so then the production suffered because, right. And I can only care so much. And it's to say, yeah, Joe, like, can we get this? And maybe they're not even thinking about it, or, oh shoot. Oh yeah. Okay. Maybe we like, I appreciate that. And I thought he did a good way of that, where you could tell that was him trying to like, we need to elevate this for the fans and not like someone did. So it's because he cares, and I appreciate that.
Right. And, and there's probably, I've talked to some people who have worked, throughout, back during the USFL and XFL, who worked on those broadcast crews. And, by the end of the season, you're a little tired. There's no question. You get a little burnout. And then you also wonder, sometimes they just, this is just the UFL. And, you hope that attitude is not prevalent, through the networks. But I do like, again, the presentation of ABC was, to me, ABC and ESPN was second to none this year.
Just a couple other things. We have the attendance here, and then a couple other things. Just I want to talk Abdul's tweets here, just kind of year over year, and then we'll talk the games because they're really exciting. And we got Brandon Silvers. Who would have thought? I can't read this. My eyes are too bad. The XFL Conference at the Dome in America Center averaged 27,589 for attendance. In Birmingham, it was 20,262. And then we'll talk the year over year, but 27 for St. Louis, 20 for Birmingham. Thoughts on that? Or 19. So excuse me. Sorry.
Right. And as we all know, these attendance figures are always tickets distributed, because when that Birmingham game started and they were showing, Protective Stadium, I was just like, this is, again, it's awesome that the people are there. They have some great hardcore fans, but these guys were trying to play for a trip to their 4th straight championship, and it was a sparse crowd. It's like, was there a big tent revival in Birmingham? Did church run late? Like, what happened that they couldn't get people there, at 3:00 in the afternoon, 2:00 Central Time? So yeah, it was just really disappointing. And we've talked about it all season long. We know that the UFL is disappointed with the attendance, I think, overall, and I think they're disappointed with the attendance in some certain venues, and I think Birmingham is one of them.
Yeah, I would co-sign that. I think it was in our group chat today. We were today, and Mike and everyone. But yeah, I think we seem feel down on Birmingham. We have a prolific network. I want to do your comment here in a second. Just a couple things for Abdul here. So now that we kind of have a regular season playoffs, We'll talk attendance predictions here with the attendance later on, but year-over-year decrease 5%, 500,000, 553, 629 last year. Thanks, Abdul, for all this. 524,000 this year. XFL 17,000, USFL Conference 7,700, and the XFL Conference without St. Louis 11,000. So still averaging more with that, but 5% down on fans this year, even with St. Louis getting the extra home game, the Alamo Dome, all that kind of stuff. Thoughts on that?
Right. Well, I think ticket prices have gone up, and I think that probably kept a lot of people away because it's just not as accessible for a lot of people. When I went up in the middle of the season to St. Louis, our tickets, we paid, I think, about $20 or $30 more each for those in relatively the same area. And then you add on top of that, your concessions they're going to be expensive. It's like that in any venue. So I do wonder that if some of the prices that a lot of fans might have felt like they're getting gouged a little bit, especially ones who maybe in St. Louis or even Birmingham or wherever, it's like, hey, wait a minute. We were here from the start and we were paying $20 a ticket, and now my same ticket's $70. To me, that would keep a lot of people away, especially when, you don't have to pay for parking. You can watch it at home and not pay for parking and not pay for $15 beers and $10 hot dogs.
I go back and forth because live entertainment is so much anymore. Like, I know what I paid to go to WrestleMania for 2 nights, and I know what Dorothy and I are paying to go to Madrid to watch the Commanders play, and I know what we even had a friend that was like trying to sell their Seahawks season tickets, and hey, we can't, does anyone want to take it over? And because I haven't looked at what does a professional sport, right? And I've been even tracking the Commanders' new stadium build and how they're going to have to do these seat licenses. And right. The point is, football is really expensive. So on one hand, I see these people that complain about whatever, and you're like, everything's expensive. I mean, I paid $900 for a plumber to come do, whatever. And everything's expensive. Everything's really, really expensive. Yeah. But I do get you where and that was the comments last week in the YouTube channel. Cause I think we got into, it was either last week or the week before when we got into the Birmingham discussion. And that was echoing your comments. It was free or it was whatever. And now it's them starting Birmingham so low was the problem. Cause you started it at this unsustainable rate of basically we get in for free, or you get a t-shirt and a blanket and whatever, and then you want to quadruple the prices over 3 years. I understand that, and I don't know how affluent a market Birmingham is. I think that compounds it, but it's a two-sided coin. But they really shot themselves in the foot by 3 or 4 years ago now with the USFL.
Well, and you've got to make these things events too. If you can't charge people more and then have the same event, you got to have a little bit of extra something. At St. Louis, they do have an area set up. I will say 2 years ago, it was incredible. I mean, they were giving stuff away and they had all this stuff. And then last year was a little bit smaller. It felt like it was a little bit smaller this year, but you have to make it more than just the game to get a lot of people to come out. Now, hardcore people, the fans who are fans of that team, they're going to come out. But they're not, they're not going to come out every game if it's going to be, I can't walk out of here without spending $200.
Well, and also, more. I mean, and just even if you look at, if you're looking at Birmingham, right? So I've got, 5 home games over 10 weeks, right? Or whatever it is. Does that, and so, if I had Seahawks season tickets, maybe I'm going to 7 or 8 games over 17. I mean, it just feels like it compounds all that. And I mean, I just remember that first season when we were really, they're doing the USFL podcast every week and all that. And I'm like, by the third Sunday, I might have to grocery shop, John. I might not be able to just right. take the week. I work from home, so I definitely get Dorothy where I have to do everything I do on Monday or on Sunday, because come Monday, I'm working at school and I get up at 6 and I get home late and I don't have time. So I always laugh at that. Or when people used to get mad at the Seattle stuff, I'm like, people have it's like a Thursday at 10 o'clock. People have stuff to do here in Seattle. Any other comments? I have a couple comments from the chat and then we'll move on.
No, I think you covered it. I think there, again, as Daryl Johnston said, it's only year 2. We got to work some things out. Don't have a game in Birmingham at 11 o'clock Central Time on Mother's Day on a Sunday.
Cards Nation have one comment I can't put up, but he has another one. The bet isn't gone. The attendance will plummet in St. Louis. We are done with this ass. And then this one, I like this. Justin Check. Birmingham's the greatest dynasty no one ever saw. But this is like perfect network. I consider Birmingham a good spring football city. I don't have faith anymore. The original Stallions had great numbers. Yeah, same here. I totally agree. I was expecting the conference championships to be more of a fiesta, conference logos, paying homage. Remember when we got the rights to all the USFL stuff, and then we could do all the legacy and everything, and then we're like,
Well, I mean, how great would that have been? You know, the USFL, I think it was in the second year, I think it was 20, when they like really leaned into it.
That's what I'm saying, because they settled the lawsuit so they could finally do all that.
They leaned into it. They would show, you know, during the games, they would show clips, and it was almost like they were trying to work some of those records into the current USFL. And it certainly felt that way, because you'd say, well, this is the, you know, highest, you know, passing, you know, yardage since, you know, Bobby Hebert did it. And what, and so, yeah, they really leaned into some of that. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the deal with the XFL is, or who owns what copyright or whatever, but man, lean into some of this, you know, some of the older stuff, you know, bring out Jeff Brom and asking questions. Let me ask you a question. So, yeah, I would have loved to have seen more of that, and really like, you know, that's a good point. Like this could have been like a big thing.
That is probably my favorite interview of all time.
Oh, 100%.
It's the From, and right. What's his name?
Jeff Brom.
Yeah. Jeff Brom. And if anyone that doesn't know, but that's from the XFL 01, and he was blown up the week before, killed, right? And
he was decapitated.
Yeah,
and actually stayed in the stadium. He was wearing this neck brace. And what's great is he's now the UFL coach and here in Louisville, and he was the head coach at Western Kentucky University, which I covered in television. So I really got to know him. I covered his brother, who was a high school phenom here in Louisville, and got to know him. And he is such a great guy. And I would talk to him all the time about, you know, about the XFL, but also about spring football. And actually did a story with him where I asked him, you know, about, this was at the time when the AAF was about to announce, as was the XFL. And even he said, hey, it's great, but there's no room for two spring football leagues. He said that in, I think, 2018, 2019. So, and he was right. But I always said that if the UFL really did expansion, and they came to Louisville, you know, if that was, you know, I know that was very far-fetched, but if it, like, there would be no greater ambassador than Jeff Brom.
If I was still doing the podcast, I would have you like get a cameo from him and be like, like, why do I listen to the Markcast? Like, am I breathing? Do I like football?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
is this or is this not the XFL?
Yeah. Anyway, the quote was, he got decapitated. So there was the next week, and they're like, how the hell are you out here playing the football? And he goes, let me ask you a question. Is this not the XFL? And they go, yes. And he goes, do I not have a pulse? And then they go, yes. He goes, let's go play football. And it is an all-time.
It's awesome.
Oh,
and they play that during UFL football, like they play it on the PA and have the video. It's great.
What's the guy's name?
Jeff Brom.
All right, I got to play it on here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he's and like I said, if there could be no better ambassador for spring football, because I mean it launched him too.
This because we're killing time today. Are you good with it? I feel like everyone's okay with this. If you're not okay with this, but we're gonna put Jeff Brom. Cujo, don't come at me for copyright strike. And then we're gonna play. So this was the week before.
Great. 3rd and 8, Bailey in motion. Brom throwing it into the end zone. He caught it. No signal. Touchdown.
Okay, so that was all right. So that
and he threw a I didn't even realize it was actually a touchdown.
So he's dead.
Pass.
So he's dead.
Yes,
he's still dead.
He is looking out of his.
The Orlando Ranger, led by quarterback Jeff Brom, 7 TD passes, one of the XFL's first stars.
XFL 01, don't come after me, copyright. Oh, here, they would have just showed it on here. I could have just played the whole thing.
My first reaction was I was shocked, stunned.
No, this is. I need the sideline.
Kind of,
they go through.
Here we go. This is way too.
Starting this game tonight after taking that hit just 6 days ago.
Well, let me answer that question by asking you 2 questions. One, Is this or is this not the XFL? Yes, it is. 2, do I or do I not currently have a pulse? Yes, I do. Let's play football.
I mean, it's the greatest. It's the greatest sideline interview.
Still, we're about to come up on the 25th anniversary of that next spring.
If I was doing the podcast, I would get Jeff Brom on next week. I would say we need to get him on to do all that. All right. Anything else with that? Because I want to get into the game here. Let's go back. Let's talk Battlehawks. But I wanted to get to this because it brought into this. It kind of was all related to this. How about the UFL trying to shortcut its numbers by continually putting the championship in St. Louis instead of focusing on other fan bases? So I want to get into this now. What's your thoughts on St. Louis? Here and even like this year, the 6 home games and all this and the playoffs and the championship. I mean, you're a huge bet guy. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? And then we'll get into the game. I'll pull up the stats.
I think it's not much of a gamble to put it in St. Louis. You've got a dome. You hope that the Battlehawks are going to be there if you're the UFL. But even if you're not, you're drawing on a pretty large metropolitan area. And then when you look at it, I mean, I understand the point of, what about some other fan bases? But if you're the UFL, think about this. Where else are you going to put it? Are you going to San Antonio seems to always be a problem with scheduling. Are you going to put it at Ford Field? That's a lot. And as James Ellis said right there, it's what's going to be the availability of some of these other places? So I get it. They made a big deal, this big announcement, we're here to announce that it's going to be, the UFL Championship's coming back to St. Louis. I think we all knew that before the season. There might have been some talk about trying to put it in DC, but I think wasn't there an issue there with MLS or there was some problem there. So,
hey, John, what's interesting about MLS?
Is it the website?
Yeah.
So, but I get it. I think there are probably a lot of people that are, they're tired of that, would love for it to be somewhere else. But the problem is, if you're the UFL, you've got to find an available place, and you've got to try not to roll the dice on, are you going to take it to Birmingham? Well, are you going to get people won't even show up for a team that won 3 straight championships, and it's outdoors, in the spring in the South. So there are a lot of factors that probably went in there, but that just seems to me the path of least resistance to do that, to put it in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're just running into a lot of issues, obviously, with the Super Bowl and the 2 weeks in between. And, so you have 6 days now, right? If you were trying to get, to go do and travel. I don't know. We'll see. I guess I'll be really curious. Michigan has shown their fan base to be very passionate this year. And so maybe they do come down, and maybe Michigan looks good, and this is kind of whatever. DC has always been the powerhouse. Ideally, you would use the championship game in the neutral side as a way to test the water somewhere, but then you're having to take a gamble, right? And if I'm the UFL, and if attendance doesn't really matter, then who cares? Then put it in, find some soccer stadium somewhere and put it cool. If just to experiment, then if you don't, because. I mean, if it was 27,000 for the game Sunday, I mean, what's the championship game going to be? 20?
Right. I mean, and you think about it. What if you did find a neutral site, to put this, where maybe you draw a little bit more of an audience, but you put it in a metropolitan area where you could actually, but yeah, put it in an expansion market to see where you can, if you could test some interest there, but make it a thing, bring it. Oh, you open up a whole new area of maybe some casual fans who'd be like, oh, this is going on in my town. I might go try to check this out.
Speaking of the game and speaking of quarterbacks getting killed, Jeff Bromstad, the defenders were all over this today. And whether it was Manny Wilkins or whether it was, Brandon Silver is there, not a lot of options on that. What is this? Oh, here, I don't like this website anymore. But so what did you make of, I don't know. I mean, how did you view that? Did you view that as the defender's defense showing up and just taking care of business? Or was it St. Louis have no opportunity to protect at all because they were getting killed all day?
Yes. Yes and yes.
Everything.
Yeah, 2 things can be correct. I mean, it felt like we heard all season long, and for a reason that, that offensive line, the Knights of Colombo and that they were doing such great work in protecting Max Duggan. I don't know what happened there. I mean, at one point, you hear the announcer say, like, maybe we need to put in that backup offensive line that played last week because they were doing a lot better job. They absolutely got dominated at the line of scrimmage, and that's where games are won and lost. And then, Jordan Ta'amu doing his thing. Max Duggan, I don't know how many times he was sacked, but like he was under pressure the whole time. And we know, with his motion, we saw it coming. We saw it happen again with that slower motion where he brings, the ball down here and comes up with it. It gave a lot of those, defensive linemen and the pass rush time to get to him. I mean, to the point where they had to bring in Brandon Silvers, and and it's too bad because then he got in there, was doing some work, and then he got carted off. So it's just that's a tough one to watch if you were really kind of pulling for the Battlehawks, to do this, and it would have been, frankly, I mean, I think DC fans would tell you it would have been better for the league if St. Louis had won that game so they could play a championship there. So I just, that was a tough watch, but take nothing away from DC. Like, they were absolutely the better team pretty much in all three phases. And that's what wins. And that's why I think it's really going to be a great matchup with Michigan.
It was just interesting because we kind of talked this Max Duggan thing all season of kind of his throwing motion and the weird, and obviously they're going to, the rewatches and stuff I did, they highlight a lot more of the turnovers and sacks and stuff. But like Mariners were playing the Arizona last night. And it was this weird thing too, where the pitcher kept trying to throw, like Julio got thrown that. We kept trying to throw the player off at first. And the pitcher was just an abysmal throw to first, but where the first baseman would have to catch him was like down low where he could, like, it was almost like a bad throw that led to the kind of the tag, and Julio got caught. And it's just weird, this Duggan thing, like we've been talking about all year. And then obviously, they can spotlight that and tape study and everything else, but it was just a nightmare that way. And then, it was like, I had forgotten because Pat Ruffino had blown up the group chat on Sunday about, Brandon Silvers. And then I kind of forgot by then. I'm like, yeah, Brandon Silvers and whatever. Yeah. And then he got carted out. Hakeem Butler, incredible catch in the end zone for that. Yeah. That looked good. But I don't know. It just felt like, did St. Louis have a quarterback issue here then? Or how did you, because it kind of felt like here none of their options really came to be.
Well, I mean, Max Duggan had, I think, fewer than 30 yards passing in the first half, and they're down 20-6 at halftime. So Anthony Becht had to do something. And it felt like it really did. It felt like just Duggan, it just wasn't coming together. I mean, people have bad games. He's had great games, but again, I don't think it was all him. I think DC's defense, whatever they were doing it right. And, they'd seen that team before. And, and I know that last game that you don't take a whole lot, but they had played, there at St. Louis, earlier in the year. So, and they, handled them pretty well. Now, again, they had picked off, I think, 3 Manny Wilkins passes. So it was a different setup, but DC's defense is really good. Now they had trouble stopping the run, but at that point, which DC is all, I think DC was probably 5th in like stopping the rush. But when you're down 20-6, when you've put so much pressure on the quarterback, they have no choice but to pass. And that was where, you got into trouble. And that's what happened with St. Louis.
A couple comments in the chat I'll pull up in a minute. I agree with that. Other comments related to the game. A lot of people calling for AJ McCarron here of like, AJ is still just chilling or doing,
AJ ain't coming back to St. Louis, bro.
But why? But you know what I mean, or just to think here, we go through and
right.
I mean, they brought in Silvers late. I mean, there's just been a lot of, I don't know. It feels like they never, like that happened off season, right? And it feels like they never really had that backup.
Yeah, but Max Duggan had played great. I mean, he was undefeated, and he was like one of the big reasons that they were the number one rush offense. Because, I mean, they have a great running game. They have a good offensive line that did not show up that night, but he is also a great dual threat quarterback. I mean, it was just you couldn't really take anything away from him having to step up into that starting role and then doing everything that he could do, and looked really good until he played DC.
Is that the last football pass that Brandon Silvers throws from a professional level?
I mean, he didn't start the season. And you got to wonder, like, okay, I came back and now, and then this happens, and he's been around it for a while. So maybe, and it's too bad because, like, when he did get in there, we saw him a couple of times this season. He got in there, man, and he looked great, man. He was slinging it. Just you could tell like he was a veteran quarterback. But yeah, I'd love to see him come back and play for someone because I think he could probably start for a lot of teams.
I was just laughing, like thinking, like, because we really didn't talk any of that, like AJ, just the drama and everything.
Right.
I guess with AJ and the Brahmas, like, it feels like burning a lot of bridges. If you ask me, like, I don't know if very entertaining, but nothing was as exciting. What made me think about it was Brandon Silvers with AJ and the Roughnecks, and that kind of like that was just kind of the most. And I was also way more like I just had the time to watch every game. That was kind of I really enjoyed that, and that was kind of a fun little time period we had there in the what was that the XFL 23, right?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe they all float together.
Gamblers, Roughnecks. Still the biggest fumble of the merger was that whole thing, but that's another story.
It is funny to think that Brandon Silvers was my quarterback back in 2020 with the Dragons, and now there you go. With like Brandon, we'll be into that. Battlehawks again come up short in the to go to the championship game. I don't think Anthony Becht is going anywhere, but do you have any thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll never say never because coaching business is weird. But speaking of coaches, Shannon Harris, he's got to be coach of the year, right? They started to announce some,
and we'll touch on. I did realize we forgot we had the offensive player and defense. We can touch on that if we have time at the end.
But I mean, I think what Shannon Harris has done is pretty incredible, and he gives credit to Reggie Barlow and the culture and all that. But it takes a lot when you start to, he lost an offensive line coach before the season started. Then he loses the head coach. Then his defensive coordinator leaves. So everybody's stepping up. And, what he's done to me is like, he's got to be coach of the year. And I was on the Skip Holtz bandwagon too, because he did what he did with about 15 different quarterbacks. But what Shannon Harris has done, did it consistently. And now he is in the UFL Championship. That's pretty impressive.
I will be curious, if just what he does, and does he follow? Does he go to college there with the rest? I think DC will be a team to kind of watch there. The Beck thing's weird because he's more of the cheerleader kind of coach, right? I feel like it's more of the Dan Campbell, right? Like we're the leader of men coach versus the like. I'm very curious what the Lions look like this year with Dan Campbell without Ben Johnson and all that. Like
right.
I mean, some of these teams like.
Yeah, and this and with the Battlehawks, I said before the season, I thought the big question was there was way too much change that happened really quickly. But they adapted pretty quickly. They did not adapt to what happened against DC for sure though.
Just a couple funny comments here, Chris. Can Amar Doman buy a UFL team and name them the Edmonton Eskimos? Which is wildly funny because the Edmonton Eskimos, Amar Doman owns the BC Lions, but Edmonton, they rebranded to the Elks right after COVID, and then they've sucked. So now they're like the Elks, but they just go by the EE. So now they're like it's the Eskimos again, but they're like, well, no, we're just the Edmonton. It's very weird. So I think that's very funny. And then DeMarcus here. Yeah, it should be in San Antonio or I think San Antonio is the best. Middle of the country. Every flight in the world goes to Texas.
True.
You stay on the river. I mean, Andrew Murray knows about staying on the Riverwalk. But that would be my vote because I think not that downtown St. Louis and the Hooters that Evan and I and Anthony went to, like, not that wasn't fine dining, but I think there's a Hooters in San Antonio as well. But there's
there is on the Riverwalk, yes.
There's a lot more things to do. There's a Yard House in San Antonio, and there's a Margaritaville, and I play corn. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the Riverwalk. Yes.
I covered a Final Four down there, and it was a lot of fun. But I will say, Canton is a good idea. It's a good venue. You got to worry. You got to be a football hardcore fan because there's not a whole lot else to do in Canton. Now you are close to some, you're close to cities, but still, I don't know. You got to be there for the game.
Yeah, what they have the Rock and Roll Museum. I think you can go see
in Cleveland, right? But
Is that
they've got
how far is that? How far is Cleveland to Canton?
I don't think it's that far. But I mean, when I was there, I was there for USFL at the hub, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, any football fan they got to do it. But the venue I think is a great venue. They've got, and I know they were at the time they were building. It looked like some kind of amusement park or something that was going on, on the land. So, but it feels like a place like San Antonio, if you're going to not have it in St. Louis, would probably be the right place, assuming it's available.
It's a 7-minute drive from Canton, Ohio to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I looked it up.
Well,
they're being the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's what I looked up.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. And then that was this can't have that. Then they have the Pro Football. I always thought that made the most sense to me. It was like just have a league like that we play in Canton, and just like anytime you come to the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, like there's a game going on. Like I just thought that was.
It's right there. I mean, it's like right when I left the game on a Saturday, I just walked down some stairs and went right into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's right there. It's right beside the stadium.
Let's talk here. We'll see how we do time list. We're doing good here. Michigan, Birmingham. Michigan took over. I tweeted out, Hitler dead. That's my, whenever Birmingham loses,
Lord.
it's soldiers, Hitler dead. First championship game that the Stallions aren't going to be a part of. Skip Holtz and kind of everything else. I had thoughts, and I enjoyed kind of watching Danny Etling on the sidelines, watching Bryce Perkins and all of that. But curious your thoughts here. Jamar wasn't. We had a little quarterback thing here for Birmingham. Yeah. I was down on Jamar. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was worried about Bryce Perkins like having rust. So forget that. I mean, you could tell like as soon as he came out, I'm like, this dude is not rusty. And he said after the game that he knew, he hadn't played in a while. So they were trying to make the practices, as game-like as they could. Obviously you're not going to hit the quarterback in practice. But I just thought that, I mean, I understand he's the offensive MVP. Still probably should have been Luis Perez or Jordan Ta'amu. But beside the point, he's so dynamic, and when he took over offensively, I mean, and you want to talk about, he all season long through the 10 games, even though I think he only played 7 or 8 and didn't start for whatever reason, in some of those, you see the efficiency. He was the most efficient quarterback in the league all season. Because he can do so much, and he's just like such a good passer, such a good runner. I understand why Skip Holtz took out Jamar. I think some of it carried over from previously when he'd been a little frustrated with him. Matt Corral came in and he started dealing. So it's like, okay, maybe this is going to be the move that sparks them. But Michigan's defense awfully good too. Even though they lost Frank Ginda, this defense has, they picked up, they were thin kind of, in the secondary. They signed a guy or two like maybe that week, and they came in and were really kind of able to shut down Deion Kane quite a bit, who was like, their big Stallions' biggest offensive weapon, or one of the biggest offensive weapons. But yeah, I just thought, when Malik Turner had that big touchdown and it made it 34-17, it's like, okay, that's it. Like that was it. And it was.
Anything made to and they were talking like, Michigan had played Birmingham 7 times or whatever over
right.
the, and like, does it, I mean, and like we get this in the CFL, like you play a lot of teams a lot, and sure. We do my favorite thing, which is the home and home, where we play at home one week and then they play at home. I'm like, this is wonderful. Like, right. But like, were they just kind of due there, and was it time? I mean, Michigan looked really good. They looked really fun. I like the sideline with Danny watching Bryce, and he's like doing spins in the field. And he's laughing. Like it just felt like there was like a little bit more. Where to me, Birmingham, what was it, 2 weeks? Whenever Jamar came in, it's like, well, I've got this chip on my shoulder. I got to, I made the mistake and I didn't, whatever the story was, Skip called and I didn't want to do it, or now I want to do it and I have FOMO. And just felt like he was running and just kind of trying to do everything. But when it came time to actually kind of play and throw and do, that was always my concern. And when Birmingham was losing these games, or one or two kind of coming down the stretch, that was my concern that way. And the Corral and all that. like you said, Birmingham had 1,000 quarterbacks, so eventually they were going to run out.
And, like I was talking about with Skip Holtz being a little frustrated, there were a lot of times where you have that all access and you hear him say, Jamar, you can't do this. You've got to do this. We're looking for this corner route. You can't overthrow this, that. So it felt like, he was seeing that, maybe Jamar was not, playing within the system or trying to rely too much on his talent because he's a very talented quarterback. But, it looked like the right move to bring in Matt Corral. You want to talk about, you worried about like someone who might be, a little rusty. And, Matt Corral is always that guy. Like he'll make some great throws, but then he makes the one bad one. And he did make a pretty bad interception. Now, again, it was against an all UFL safety, but it was still like, that's the one that can sometimes kill you.
Moving to the championship game here with the Panthers versus the Defenders, I think like football wise, as we talked at the top, I think it's very exciting to see because I think the Panthers are really kind of playing at their peak right now, Bryce and everything. And I guess who's your take for that? Because we talked at the top, and I'm sure UFL is like, God, they do anything to have St. Louis or whatever, or Birmingham. But considering this is the game that it is, I think it'll be good. But what are you looking for?
Well, I got out of the prognostication business because I had St. Louis and Birmingham in the championship game. So I don't know if you even want to ask me that. But I do think that you're going to see two great quarterbacks, like we said. And, quarterback play is what drives a team, but it also is what's going to drive, maybe some viewers to watch this and be interested. Because we'll remember the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, the defenses were so far ahead of the offenses, and some of those games were just not very fun to watch. It wasn't even like they were great defensive games. It was just the offense kept trying to catch up. And when it did, we had some excellent games. So I think you're right. I think Jordan Ta'amu is peak level right now. Bryce Perkins showed that he's not hurting. There was no rust on that guy. He came to play. So I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from either defense, but I do think like we could see a lot of scoring in this game, which again, I think that's also a good thing for the UFL if we see a really high scoring game and hopefully a lot closer than last year's UFL Championship.
Yeah, I was there. That was the blowout, right? They had Birmingham. Did they have 3 points at the end, Birmingham, or what? Or not San Antonio?
San Antonio. I don't think they ever scored, did they? I thought it was like 24, 25, nothing, something like that.
It was really bad. It was really bad. Abdul said that too. This should be a really fun, high scoring game. Yeah, he just had a comment here. We'll get out at the top of the hour. There's been a lot of buy-in from Detroit media this year. Detroit Free-Press wrote game recap articles the second half. I see Pride of Detroit putting out 2 articles too. Yeah, I mean, Tony Scott's there. He's been on the show. I think he's with the Free Press. I mean, we've had some of the Detroit media. It's like you said, it's earning that buy-in and doing it every week and not going away. I think certain teams are better at managing. That's like I've heard San Antonio is very hard to like get requests or in Arlington, we hit or miss and paying for parking and stuff. Yeah, I think like earning that buy-in like from your beat reporters, I think is really valuable for them to kind of putting that content on there.
And in a click-based economy, you have to write stories that people care about. And it felt like, it helps when you've got a really good team. And then if you can put that together with some buy-in and then you say, okay, well, this team's pretty good again this year. Let's write something and see like, what happens with it. And if they get enough clicks on it, they'll say, okay, this is something that people are interested in. So we'll continue to write for it. But you're right. You have to have people, your PR people, whoever, who are accommodating, because if you put any kind of obstacle in front of the media for a spring football league, they're going to move on. Like they're because they don't think it's worth it. So you don't do that. Like you mentioned, give them free parking. Like let them in the press box. It's fine. Like it's all free. It's free publicity for you.
I've never laughed harder than that sports gambling podcast.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
At Jeff, who's not with the UFL anymore, but the former former comms director, and just screaming on their podcast. And I've just never laughed harder than like every single feeling that I felt for like 2 years, someone else saying out loud in like 5 minutes more eloquently than I could just ever say it. And I just really, really appreciated that. A couple of last couple last questions here. Of course, I have Tony Paul. Yeah, it's not Tony Scott. It's Tony, whatever. Abdul, you get it. It's the people. Brett asked me yesterday, Brett, with the Facebook group, are we getting Tom Brady or another announcement at the championship game?
There's been a lot of smoke. I've yet to see the fire. So, but there's been some talk. I finally, and I had to eat crow on this one because there was a lot of talk about Fred Smith and FedEx in Memphis, and I never, ever saw any real reporting about that. And I looked forever. Finally, and I'm drawing a blank on the reporter's name, and I shouldn't, because he does a great job for the Memphis newspaper. He actually covers the team and talks about not just what happens on the field, but a lot of the stuff off it. And he did mention that which is doing a lot of work here in this sentence, if Fred Smith and FedEx wants to continue, with the UFL, then they're probably not going to move. And then we continue to hear also now that I don't know if we're even going to see expansion, and that, all the teams are going to stay put. Usually, don't they have like kind of a state of the league thing before the championship game, like maybe that Friday or Thursday or Friday? So if that does happen again, I know Daryl Johnston did it once. I don't know if Russ Brandon's going to be the guy. It seems like we've seen a lot of Russ Brandon, but whoever it is, I will be interested to hear, like, what's going on with the league, kind of their, and really would like to hear some truth into this, like what's really happening. And are we going to see, like, I don't know, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, although I did win $60 this past weekend, because I had a touchdown scored in the first 10 minutes of the St. Louis DC game. I did bet on that. They scored with 9 minutes. But I will say that if I were a betting man, I would think that if there is some kind of announcement, if there's anything in the works at all, whether it's official or not, that either gets leaked out or talked about this week.
Yeah, I remember it was, they did do that state of the league. So I'm just trying to kind of backtrack all my stuff. I think when I went to the XFL Championship game, Rock and Danny did an on-field thing before the game. And I want to say when the USFL did it, you are correct, where they did like a day before presser, which and that was last year too. You're absolutely correct. And I just howled because I thought that anyone is getting into town early enough to go to like a 8, whatever the heck it was, presser the day before the championship game. It's just wild to me. But like, this isn't the CFL where like reporters come in on Monday and stay till Sunday. Like, if the game's on Sunday, I might be flying in Saturday night, or if the game's on Saturday, I might be flying in. I'm not there at 8 a.m. to do a state of the league presser with Russ but they did. I do know they did that because I saw the notes. But I don't foresee anything happening, and I'll have another comment, but I'll toss it back to you. I don't foresee, and I don't, and I think you had sent me the Memphis Showboats were back in Memphis with the mascot like today or yesterday, and that certainly doesn't tell me anybody is like looking to relocate out of there.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, and that's what, Memphis has done so much with, in the community. We've talked about it, and they've tried. They've tried. So, but I mean, you got to have a good product on the field, but they did try.
I think that the expansion talk was a Hail Mary at the beginning of the season to generate interest. I'm not saying a Hail Mary that because it didn't, the league's going away, but I think they were trying to generate. And I think it's interesting as well. I think Mark had his article last week and they're like, well, we're not expanding anymore. Or like, he doesn't think. I'm like, well, I'm glad we just spent 2 weeks talking about all these trademarks that you lied. Like, okay, like now that we've gotten all the, oh, that's not really happening. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we got our news cycle out of that. I do not believe we are announcing to, and I'll be happy to admit that I'm wrong.
You would think that it would have leaked out, though. You would think it would have leaked out.
There's no.
If it was, and obviously it's got to be a pretty major market, but you would think somewhere along the line that someone in the mayor's office or somewhere would have leaked this out. Hey, by the way, this is going to happen. So to me, if the league doesn't expand and there's no real plan, I mean, it blows. You're right. It's like every few weeks we're talking like it's going to happen. No, it's not. Next week, yeah, it's going to happen. So, but to me, it's like if it doesn't expand and you've got the same 8 teams in the same 8 markets, you got to worry a little bit. To me.
Yeah, that's what UFL fan.
I mean, I'm still gonna watch, but you got to worry.
Yeah, 100%. And
right.
I'm still gonna be, and like with the pod, like I'll still be, I'm lurking and everything. I don't have, especially the CFL. I just don't, and it's just not fair to the league to try to talk about it when I'm not watching. Like I don't, that's why I'm like, I got to the point where I'm like, I actually need to do. Well, there you go. Mike's predicting no expect. Yeah, like I said, we got like Mike was not part of this, but like I'm saying, like Mark and Brandon and everyone, like we got the clicks. So now like that's okay. No, I don't think that yeah, I don't that. Yeah. If he's, I would go with that. And Mike's always been whatever on that, but it felt like, well, it's week 7. I'm bored. Okay. Now, and I just always laugh about Brandon's in whatever the follow-up video where it's like, I just can't figure out why no one else is talking about this. And I'm like, because it's probably not happening. Like,
well, but but you're right. Like, why would the league issue a press release to say, yeah, we're looking at expanding? Now, again, I go back and I think I mentioned it here before. You go back 20 plus years. I'm old enough to remember when it was 3 or 4 weeks into the XFL 2001 season, and they talked to ESPN about it. We're going to look at Washington, D.C., and maybe Chicago, or not Chicago. They were going into another bigger market because they were saying, we're going to start talking about expanding in 2002. Now, that didn't happen, obviously. So that's why I just like, when you start to talk about that, you better have something behind it, especially these days. Again, it was a different media world in 2001. Now this is, a lot of us slappies are on here on YouTube talking about it and everything else.
No, but I would be, my last comment, I would be thrilled and it would be great.
Yeah.
I just, I don't see that happening. And then the last thing, right, we had the defensive player of the year, Bryce Perkins for offensive player, and then PETA from the Battlehawks for defensive player. And then we had Kendrick Whitehead for specialists with that. I imagine we'll do coach of the years and all. Like, anyway, that's all coming out this week, but I'm not delaying the podcast to talk about it.
It was like they released one as a press release, then they released another one. So I'm assuming it's coming probably, if it hasn't already, it'll be maybe tomorrow. They'll start talking coach of the year and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Last comment here. League needs to make changes. If they do everything the same, interest will go down. And
I 100% agree.
My interest is down. So there you go. That's an
well, like I said, I'm still a sicko. I'll watch, but I'll be a little disappointed if we don't see something different in the year 3 of the UFL.
Thanks everyone for watching today. Make sure check out John's channel. He'll be doing more of that stuff. I know. Just keep following Anthony Miller too on on Twitter. I think he's starting to do some more stuff. I know he announced something with the Bears today. He's working, doing writing. Yeah. So just support everyone else, and that's just kind of what I'm going to try to do now is just share and support and do that with Chris.
We're all sickos.
We're all sickos. But anyway, so support that. Support John. Like the channel. Like everyone else. Be kind. Enjoy the game. And then we'll do it next week. I got to look at my schedule. We'll figure it out. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.